Just got done dealing with a comment where the writer claimed that the lack of exclusivity on Xbox is what's making their console sales go down. And then they made a big argument about Netflix, Disney Plus, about users going to different grocery stores and supermarkets and such. But their whole argument was based on one serious fault. The fault was that Xbox's consoles had been seeing steady decline before they stopped their exclusivity, program. In fact, if you look at any console sale history, it seems like these companies can tell you the trajectory of things, or at least you can judge within the first year of what's going on. In fact, to this effect, I gave the example of the Berkshire Hathaway publication of July 2021, where by that time, PlayStation had already surpassed 10 million units sold, basically making it the fastest selling console in Sony Interactive Entertainment history. Now, people will argue today that the consoles have not really slowed down because there are 1 million or so units behind the PS4, but it's interesting to see the different perspectives. If you look at Xbox's console sales at the time and how it totaled, you can tell that, perhaps somebody looked and saw the writing on the wall during the Xbox One. After the TV presentation, a more expensive console, Phil Spencer claimed that they lost the console war. So what I did was I replied to that person and told him that this exclusivity you're talking about, Game Pass, is the Xbox exclusive that PlayStation users can't get, are talking about, and in the case of this subreddit thread, which is just one example, are in a sense extremely jealous of because of what the service offers. Now, this person to that effect said a few very interesting words. They said, VG, LOL, clearly your reading comprehension is not your strong point. Reread my comment over and over until you get it. Very interesting. Thank you very much for finding a very interesting and fun backhanded way to tell me that I'm slow. I appreciate it. Game Pass is a subscription service, and that might entice a small amount of people into choosing that platform. Do you guys know what's really funny? What's really funny is when this person came out with their comments, they said that exclusives were the method for these consoles to entice people to come to their platforms. So, after telling them that Game Pass is an exclusive, in fact, let's look at their previous comment right here. They said exclusives are what entice people to choose one platform or one store over another. That's what you said, right? So when I replied that Game Pass is the exclusive, you insulted my reading comprehension, but then agreed with me. I think you're arguing in bad faith. This happens with a lot of PlayStation fanboys. You first of all call everybody an Xbot or call them some kind of slur or insult them first before you try to make an argument, but you step on a rake while you're at it. You just agreed with me, thereby diminishing your own talking points when you actually said this. That, according to you, your own comment, and I'm trying to blur your name out in this video, you said Game Pass is a subscription service and might entice a small amount of people into choosing the platform. However, your statement is also failing the data smell test because when you look at Game Pass's growth over the last few years from the numbers that we have, you'll realize that the service has grown significantly more than a small amount of people choosing the platform. In fact, on top of that, what we've also seen is that on these forums like the subreddit, on Twitter, where gamers are talking, they're looking at their actions to going ahead to switching, according to Lethal Javi 24 days ago. 2 weeks ago, I switched from the PS5 after 15 years in the PlayStation ecosystem to the Xbox Series X Digital Edition. Game Pass in combination with Quick Resume, is amazing. Not to mention cloud gaming on many devices. I'm loving it, no regrets. This person said, what's crazy is that happened right after I bought a PS5. Why does this happen? Also, what sucks is I did because Xbox Game Pass sucked. Then they just keep putting bangers on there, and in PS5 Plus, we get the games everyone hates, like Forspoken, Gollum, the Star Wars game everyone hates, and they're removing good ones like Resident Evils. Like, what's happening? Yo, if you read these comments, the conclusions that you're coming up with are very, very fun at the end of the day. Your other points in the other video basically could not stand because you misplaced the timeline as to when Xbox started going through its exclusivity issues in terms of the console. It was the console sales that forced Xbox to drop exclusivity. It wasn't dropping exclusivity that forced Xbox's console sales to actually dwindle down in the Xbox One generation, because they launched the console for about 3-ish years before they launched the game day and date on PC. We have a timeline, we follow, and we stick to the timeline. Are we following? Anyways, let's continue, because this is a very interesting set of events. This user then said it's also not an Xbox exclusive. It's also not an exclusive to Xbox, in parentheses, so no reason to buy an Xbox when you could get Game Pass on PC with a better deal. I agree with you. What's funny is a lot of so-called PlayStation fanboys come in here and say, what's the point in getting an Xbox when you can just get a PC? Don't know that you're actually running right straight into my own territory. You see, there is the Xbox trap. All I do is point out how you PlayStation fans continue to put your foot and get caught into that trap. But because most of you think you're smart enough, you want to jump over that trap and malign Xbox from the other side. Guess who's waiting for you? VG and the PC trap. I'm the bigger trap. So you jump and you're like, ha ha ha, bam, I shut the door. And I'm like, yeah, come to PC. Because that's exactly what I've been saying for a long time. In fact, you can ask that question, right? What's the point in buying an Xbox if their games are coming to PC? Am I right? I asked the same question too. Not that I'm sitting here celebrating it. In fact, I'm one of the first people that said that Marvel Spider-Man should go to PC. I have a video to that effect from 6 years ago. I already saw the PC gaming market making a very interesting change, and so I made the proposal that, based on the data, I have multiple videos actually to that effect, that their game, the Spider-Man game, would come to PC. Little did I know that Herman Hulst was cooking up the entire slate, or at least a huge portion of the slate, or at least maybe he wanted to try one particular game, which was Horizon Zero Dawn, and then he moved the freaking, shop over to PC on Steam, where there are right now about 22 games which are from PlayStation on PC. They're no longer exclusives outside of the fact that it's a console exclusive. So if you say PlayStation has some console exclusives, yet Xbox doesn't, then you're making that up, because on this side, in the Xbox case, they do have Game Pass as the console exclusive. You cannot get it on PlayStation, neither can you get it on Nintendo. This is why those who are here talking about this, right? For instance, PlayStation should just throw us a bone and put Midnight Walkout as a day one release for PS Plus. This person said Doom Dark Ages is on, day one on Game Pass. We're also getting the Call of Duty again, day one, and likely Wu Chang Fallen Feathers day one too. Feels like since late last year, they've really found a good spot for game releases, maybe even too good. We had games like Lies of P, Stalker 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Ninja Gaiden 2, Black Remake, Indiana Jones, Avowed, South of Midnight, Blueprints, Oblivion, Remastered, Expedition 33. Also, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4. Remastered is coming to day one Game Pass. Outer Worlds 2 as well. Do you see what's going on? Do you see what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? When you think about the different conversations about what's valuable and such, you can already see where a lot of these particular notions are missing what I think is the crux of the matter. Then you said the average person does not care about Game Pass. Well, how do you know? How do you know? I'm literally showing you a PlayStation Plus subreddit where there are people that are PlayStation Plus users, PlayStation gamers, in fact, in one case, 15-year PlayStation veteran, switching to Xbox. And why did they say they switched to Xbox? Because of Game Pass and Quick Resume. It's an anecdote, but at least I'm showing you one PlayStation player. So for you to say the average person doesn't care about Game Pass, it doesn't really help us, because I'm looking at gamers out there and I'm like, man, it seems like some of them do care about Game Pass. Then you went ahead and said something that I thought was very interesting. You want to listen to yourself say this. You said they just want to play games that they want to play, and they're going to go to where those games are available. And if one platform has one game that the other doesn't have, they're always going to choose the platform with more games. Hold on. You said if one platform has a game that the other platform doesn't have, they're going to choose the platform with more games. So you mean to tell me that since 2023, which is 3 years into the console life cycle, that PlayStation has launched more games for this console generation than Xbox? Is that what you're trying to tell me? I'm asking you. Because if that's not what you're trying to tell me, and Xbox has launched more games than PlayStation in this particular piece in the last 3 years of the console generation, with announcements to the effect of more coming down the road, then it basically stems to the fact that your analysis would show that people would be moving to Xbox from PlayStation, as we've seen in this PlayStation subreddit, where people are talking about how they feel that, PlayStation Plus is a scam. You see what I'm talking about? This person said nothing new, to be honest. Game Pass has always been a cut above Plus, in my opinion. I own a PS5 and a Series X. I hardly play PS5 nowadays and canceled my PS sub about a year ago, or whatever it was when they hiked up the price. I mainly play PC now. Cheaper games, no sub required. Oh, and 4K 120 performance. Game Pass is sick, this person said. I feel very blessed to have both consoles. There's some real high-quality third-party games that you actually want to play. For example, pretty recently, Ninja Gaiden, Rogue Trader, Hollow Knight, Inscription, and name a few. PlayStation Plus is so bad in comparison, feels like the odd game, otherwise 6 to 7 out of 10 games only. This person said, I have both the PS5 since launch and the Series X since 2023. Originally, I bought Game Pass and PS Plus. Eventually, I realized PS Plus had nothing to offer. Game Pass is where it's at. And this month alone, I played South of Midnight, Lords of the Fallen, Atom Fall. Atom Fall was a game that came out a while back. Now with Oblivion and hope to try Expedition 33 before Doom, PS5 became a Netflix player. I would, of course, use it to play Sony exclusives if Sony was actually launching any. But this gen, I can't count the amount of games I played on Game Pass. Even if I just look at the Xbox first party compared to a few Sony games on PS5, the worst Sony generation ever for gamers. Hey, guys, these are not my words. This is somebody who's on the PlayStation Plus subreddit. Don't come at me telling me, oh, VG, you're making an anti-PlayStation video. Get out of here and go talk to these people on the subreddit and try to talk them down. For Sony, they keep selling consoles and pocketing on third-party sales, including Microsoft games. But I would not be surprised if many choose an Xbox next generation. Now, he has no evidence to that, but he's saying that seeing how people are playing where there are more games, because you just argued my case. I keep thinking Microsoft is porting games to PlayStation 5 to show Sony base what they're missing. The Trojan horse strategy. No. Let's not. Don't say anything about it. They're going to say you're coping. And they can't get it all on Game Pass. And they can get it all on Game Pass and Xbox. It isn't close. Game Pass is the best value in entertainment, period, not just gaming. Sony sells PlayStation. Microsoft sells Game Pass. They know they won't sell consoles like Sony again, so they shifted to content and put everything behind Game Pass. All Microsoft games on their day and date, plus other devs, if deals happen like Expedition 33, and they own Bethesda, Activision Blizzard, and a ton more studios. Sony doesn't have that many studios now in comparison, and try to sell PS Plus sub for first-party games. Again, I'm looking at your argument where you are telling me that reading is not my strong suit, insulting me, and saying things like, I know it's hard. You said, we can tell that you're an Xbox fanboy trying to hide behind a PC. I feel insulted by that. Why would I try to hide behind a PC? I have multiple of those things. Okay? Don't try to backhand insult me. I'm a PC gamer. I'm a nerd. I've been a nerd since before I became a teenager. Before I grew chest hair. I saw a PC and I was like, this is it. I never even owned a console for many, many years. It was a PC thing. So all this talk about you're an Xbox fanboy. So, to be honest, man, no offense to the Xbox fan base, man, but this insult is getting out of hand, because for me to go ahead and jump on an Xbox after having discovered Microsoft's Windows at the time, which was way more fascinating to me, is just kind of a reductionist, depiction of what it is that I enjoy doing and I enjoy playing my games on. If you understand what I mean. Now, you can say what you want, but even if I was an iguana, let's just say I was an iguana and I was sitting over here telling you all this stuff, and I had data to back it up, where is your own evidence to back up the things that you said? In fact, you argued yourself into a circle and ended up proving my point in two instances. Number one, where you said that people should just get a PC. And number two, Well, you said people are going to go to where more games are. And then you said to me, with your insulting, dirty, nasty mouth, keep reading everything I said over and over again until you get it. You're so rude. You're so rude. That's rude. Very rude. Like your president would say, rude, rude, rude. These cats on the PlayStation platform, on the PlayStation fanboy, aspect. Let me tell you why you're frustrated with the VG5 School channel content. You're frustrated because you've signed up for a cult-like following of a plastic box, and you never really, determined that you were going to actually think through or, take your time to, digest what the gaming industry was doing in terms of the changes being made. So now here you are, basically arguing so hard that you fail to even pay attention to exactly what the gaming industry is seeing from a change perspective. You won't even go to a PlayStation Plus subreddit and go listen to what PlayStation players are saying. You will run to a channel that's pointing those things out to you to try to go ahead and spout your own personal, whatever it is, beliefs or whatnot. Forget your personal beliefs. If they do not align with the financial profits of the company, those personal beliefs are out the window as fast as possible. To be very honest. In fact, here's another thing for that personal belief exclusivity nonsense that y'all have been talking about. When I cited this Berkshire Hathaway article, do you know what was actually sitting in it? What was sitting in it is the fact that MLB The Show, a PlayStation game since 1997, sold its fastest selling title in the franchise history with more than 2 million copies sold across all platforms. And the game had reached 4 million players since releasing on April 16, 2021. The shareholders for Sony were celebrating them taking a game multi-plat, or MLB forcing and bullying them, if that's how you want it, to take the game multi-plat. Because if that game had stayed in San Diego studios without churning out money, their studio would have been gone. PlayStation, they don't play around. When a studio ain't cutting it, they cut. We've seen it. Cold, too. So all this talk about exclusivity and all of the above is only when it's convenient that exclusives are exclusives. That's all the market is telling you. Starfield, for instance, I've told people that game is going to stay exclusive for a minute. They said, oh, no, the game has made its money. There's no reason for them to even spend time doing anything, unless, of course, Phil Spencer wants to be really, really petty and pretty much go ahead and drop a bomb on the head of those reviewers that kept talking smack about Starfield. But I'm not certain that he's going to put, that game on PlayStation. You never know. It may be. They may do it. But I'm not certain because the game has already made its money. A lot of the other games where there's risk, they're going to take to PlayStation. Old games that have already made their money, if they're old, I think, if you look at what's going on, the criteria is kind of right there in front of you. Old games that have already made their money, that they look and say, we can continue a franchise, 5-year-old game, 8-year-old game, 6-year-old game, Gears of War Reloaded, Forza Horizon 5, they can go make extra money on there and introduce people to that IP. So that when it comes down to it, the next Forza coming out, people are going to be like, wait, you mean I'm going to pay $70 for this? Or I can go Game Pass and I can play all these other games? They go to Game Pass. Whether they go to Game Pass on the Xbox console or whether they go on the internet, or whether they go on their browser or their Amazon Fire TV, what does it matter? Xbox has the capacity to deliver multi-game. PlayStation knows this. What are you PlayStation fanboys talking here? The company that you guys are all trying to basically go ahead and shape in a different way already understands and knows that that Xbox can basically supply their games in almost any fashion that they can get their hands on, while they are behind the competition, feeding off of third-party games. Xbox decided we're not going to wait to be feeding off third-party games. We're going to go out there and get the money. And Xbox is hated for that. The people making the content talking about it are the people that are going to be getting flack for that because you believe something that reality is not showing. Come on. You need to stop it. Stop insulting people because of your, outdated beliefs about so-called exclusivity and stuff. This isn't 2002 anymore, son. I said son. I don't know why I said that. Sir. This isn't 2020. This is not 2002. This is 2025. The gaming industry is about to eat what I think is its biggest wake-up call after all these years of slacking and doing whatever it wanted. And it's a good thing that we have a big juggernaut that's going to come here and disrupt everything. It's to the benefit of the consumer, by the way, just so you know. I don't care who it was. If it was freaking Amazon that would have done it, sure. If it was Apple that would have done it, that would have disrupted the industry, sure. As long as the consumer gets the best benefit, that's where everything actually stems, or at least should be leaning to. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.